Hey there, Mr. Terrier, high school history teacher. Welcome back to another History Teacher X video. All right, Canadians, I think I finally got a video for you. So stop complaining. But we'll see if this makes you look good or bad, because this video is titled, Why Do Canadians Go Ballistic During War? All right, this is from channel favorite Simple History. And I'd actually seen that my friend Chris from Vlogging Through History had reacted to this, and looks like it got a good response. And when thinking about it, it made me kind of look at the title again. And I noticed that it says, Why do Canadians go ballistic during war? Not just Canadians go ballistic during war. Why do they do that? I think that intrigues me more than anything. All right, this original video located down below. Make sure you're supporting Simple History. Let's get started. All right, Canadians, how are you known for being so chill, but also at the same time, you guys go so hard in war? What's the deal?
Why do Canadians go ballistic in war? Canadians. We all know the stereotype. Nice, friendly, and extremely apologetic. If you're fighting them, though, avoid them at all costs, because for some strange reason, these usually calm maple leaf lovers go absolutely ballistic when there's a war on.
They're dropping nades and
trench raids. In World War I, the only thing scarier than going on a trench raid was to be on the receiving end of a Canadian one. Soon after their deployment, the Canucks earned a fearsome reputation as enthusiastic and innovative practitioners of this brutal art.
Go out and no man's land even more.
Stealth, they were known to blacken their faces and to wear thick rubber gloves.
Blackface?
They also brought along with them a variety of handmade weapons to optimize their killing effectiveness, such as spiked clubs, knives, and brass knuckles to allow them to take out enemies silently. Alternatively, pipe bombs and grenade catapults were used if they preferred to go in guns blazing. On operation, the Canadians tore through trenches so quickly and with such cold-blooded efficiency that by the end of the war, they were able to reach up to 1 kilometer behind enemy lines.
All right, so what I want to know is if we can consider this stuff uniquely ballistic, right? Well, I guess for any of the wars, but I guess specifically for the trench warfare, World War I here. By the way, help me out with this. When did Canadians first enter the fronts? As kind of an extension of the British Empire, being part of the British Commonwealth, you would probably see an argument that it would be much earlier than, of course, the Americans, who don't get going out till about, 1917 into 1918. But yeah, let me know. I don't know exactly about their timing.
Their speed and ferocity earned them the nicknames from the terrified Germans, ranging from stormtroopers to wild colonials.
The angry syrup men.
Terrified Germans, ranging from stormtroopers to wild colonials.
I also like to think that they they dipped their bayonets in syrup to add some kind of, I don't know, maybe you get an infection, or at least I guess it would be more sticky.
The savage determination of the Canadians was most on show in the 4 months leading up to the Battle of Vimy Ridge, where they conducted 55 raids. The most disastrous of these happened in March of 1917,
get some gas going?
involving over 1,300 soldiers, despite suffering an appalling 43% casualty rate and being constantly gassed. One group of raiders was able to clear a 450-meter section of the German trench.
Dang.
Killing prisoners of war.
Oh, gosh, okay. Should we have some especially brutal POW executions? I don't know why they were so amped. I mean, like many countries, Canada, like in the United States and Australia, had all this ethnic cleansing of indigenous populations. And then for them, it was like, what, we need more war, or we're getting bored here.
When they weren't going on deadly nighttime raids, the Canadians could usually be found slaughtering prisoners of war. Shockingly, in World War I, the murder of German POWs was actively
Wait. Okay, this is a training camp. It's like, all right, we're going to put up our German officer training dummies here. All right, everybody dip your bayonets in the syrup. The guy that bets the bayonets the most gets some poutine.
Shockingly, in World War I, the murder of German POWs was actively encouraged by some commanders. Before the attack on Vimy Ridge, for instance, one soldier recalled how an officer told him, "Remember, no prisoners. They'll just eat your rations." Having to share already limited food supplies.
Dude, what if this is like Japan in World War II? It's like, no, we're not going to have that, all right? You're teaching them that like Japan in World War II is basically like, yeah, you don't be nice to the prisoners because they won't be nice to you. So we got to make sure that you're especially brutal.
You'll just eat your rations. Having to share already limited food supplies was just one of the reasons why most preferred to shoot rather than capture. But the most powerful justifications were revenge and battle rage. In a typical account, one lieutenant would recall how, after losing half of his company to machine gun fire, his surviving men rushed to the battery that had caused the damage to find the Germans inside crying and with their hands up.
Oh my God.
Unmoved, they proceeded to mercilessly bludgeon and shoot them to death. Another would relate on one occasion, a German rushed to one of his comrades with a bayonet, but then chickened out and surrendered. In his own words,
wait, German dude, he runs out there, but he's probably ordered by, he's got the little German guy with the pistol there. You're ordered in the raid, some regular Joe running up there. I'm going to bayonet. Then you get closer, like, I don't want to do this anymore. Now, again, my question is going to be, is this exceptional brutality?
Our boy would have none of it. He lunged at the German again and again, who each time lowered his arms and stopped the point of the bayonet with his bare hands.
He still went for it.
The German was screaming for mercy.
Take some syrup to the abdomen.
Even if a surrendering German somehow survived his initial encounter with a wild colonial, his life was still in great danger. In this regard, one veteran would remember how he once witnessed one of his fellow Canadians turn a German POW into red mist by dropping a live grenade into his greatcoat pocket.
Oh,
live and let die.
Some dude drops a nade in his like back pocket and then turned him into red mist. Dude, simple history is not censoring or using tamer words for all of this. So this is all World War I stuff? Okay, I mean, at least so far, we're about a third of the way through the video. All right, live and let die. Oh, gosh.
During World War I, soldiers carried out an unofficial live and let live policy. This was an unspoken agreement in which both sides agreed to only attack each other if ordered. The most famous example of this in action was the unofficial 1914 Christmas Day truce, in which thousands of combatants from both sides exchanged gifts.
Now, you know, too, and if you didn't know, pay special attention to the 1914. That's the first Christmas. You know, this war was not was not necessarily predicted to be as long as, of course, it's going to be with multiple years. And the hostilities are only going to increase during the war. You're not going to see anything as probably famous and noble, I think, as this, like the Christmas truce, because first off, they kind of got in trouble for doing this kind of thing. This was not part of official orders to be fraternizing with the enemy, and they sang Christmas carols and they exchanged gifts and all this stuff, because literally the next day they're going to start blowing each other up again. You're not going to see that for the rest of the war. So I can't imagine to see anything similar to this ever again, especially with that what we're learning about the Canadians in World War I.
Day truce, in which thousands of combatants from both sides exchanged gifts, sang carols, and mingled with each other for a few hours. The next year, though, the Canucks were on the front lines, and unlike their allies, live and let live was not in their vocabulary. Among their number were the troops of the 3rd Battalion, who were stationed in the Ypres salient on the Western Front. In the spirit of the previous year, voices from the opposing trench wished them a happy Christmas, and some of the friendlier Canucks returned the greetings. After a couple of minutes, men from both sides had raised their heads above the dugouts, and an older, whiskered man was invitingly waving a box of cigars.
Right, they
moments later, a Canadian sergeant ruined Christmas by dispatching 2 Germans with his machine gun. Of course, this wouldn't be the last time the Germans of the Great War were tricked into a false sense of security by their heartless North American foe.
Yo, Canada. I'm changing your anthem to Yo, Canada, not Oh, Canada. Dude, they tricked them into having like a Christmas truce. They're coming out. They're like, this is going to be great. It's going to be so nice. Let's show some humanity for each other. We're only fighting because people are forcing us to. We're coming out. We got gifts. And then you mow them down. Oh my gosh. By the way, Canadians, how aware are you of some of these things? We're going more and more and learning about military atrocities, even from the American perspective and the carrying out of Americans, I think more and more in the US, but in Canada, is that becoming more socially permittable to talk about some of the, outliers of brutality in Canadian military history? Let me know too.
One particularly cruel episode, Canuck troops tossed tins of corned beef into a German trench. Then, when they heard their requests for more, they lobbed grenades at them instead.
Oh, no.
As the stories so far have illustrated, for some reason,
they're like, yeah, more corned beef. And they're like, okay, here. Sorry, not sorry.
Canadians went absolutely bananas in World War I. But why were they so angry?
Yeah!
Some historians have argued their ruthlessness was an emotional response to a battlefield rumor about the so-called crucified Canadian, an officer who was supposedly crucified to a barn door near Ypres. Others have speculated their thirst for revenge drew from their traumatic experience at the harrowing 1915 Second Battle of Ypres, during which Canadians took the brunt of the first ever German poison gas attack of the war.
I mean, the thing is, these things go both ways in the army and involve multiple nations. So again, are we talking about a specific form of cruelty? Because this is pretty much par for the course for anybody fighting in World War I.
The best explanation, however, may be the simple fact that Canadians were brutalized more than any others because they were always being placed in the first wave of attacks. Juno Beach.
Oh. So all right, they're like, we're part of the Commonwealth of the British, and the British are like, hey, we're going to throw all of our Commonwealth folk out to the front there. So Canadians, Australians, New Zealanders, Indians, all that stuff, y'all are going first, and because of that, you're just going to go crazy because you're literally at the front line and going to do whatever it is to survive, which can again often mean incredible brutality when you get in that kind of mode. Okay, any facts to this? Were they routinely put on the front waves when fighting in World War I? Okay, Juno Beach. Okay, so we fast forwarding now?
Always being placed in the first wave of attacks.
Dude, this is so interesting.
Juno Beach.
Wild.
By the close of the Great War, the Canadians had gone from a relatively unknown fighting force to one of the planet's most feared and respected military outfits. It was with this hard-earned reputation that they would enter the killing fields of World War II to face off against a German army reinforced by elite units with a strangely familiar name, Stormtroopers.
Yeah, those actually go back to World War I too. But anyway, so the Canadians are part of D-Day. There was 5 beaches that were landed upon across the English Channels, a couple American ones, a couple British ones, and then a whole Canadian one. So basically, I don't remember exactly how the numbers break down for each of the beach and how many people were deployed there, but at least looking from the different locations, that's 1/5 of D-Day.
Elite units with a strangely familiar name, Stormtroopers. On June 6, 1944, the Canadians reminded everyone of their elite status when they pulled off what's considered one of the most tactically successful operations of D-Day. Their objective was to storm Juno Beach and then seize the cities of Caen and Bayeux with 14,000 soldiers and 1,000 paratroopers. During the first wave, 3,000 lion-hearted Canadians rushed towards German pillboxes, taking heavy casualties.
Pillboxes, those kind of little fortified places of machine gun nests and stuff. Very difficult. You got to get pretty accurate and close range to be able to destroy those. It can be super dangerous, especially in exposed positions like these beaches were in.
They were then followed in by tanks, which obliterated most of the German beach defenses, allowing infantrymen to swarm in and begin close quarters fighting.
It's pretty typical for the
Impressively, it took them less than 2 hours to secure their first route off the beach at the small town of Courcelles. By the end of the day, Courcelles-sur-Mer, Saint-Aubin-sur-Mer, and Colombiers-sur-Soleil had all fallen, and the tank regiment of the 1st Hussars were at the Caen-Bayeux highway intersection.
It's all right, don't worry, the French Canadians are here. Their long-lost cousins here to help France.
Making them the only Allied unit on D-Day to actually reach their final objective. The Devil's Brigade.
Okay, so they got all the way through, and the other one's a little bit slowed down. Maybe, I don't know, if a little bit more methodical, a little bit more paced. I mean, it did take a good couple months to finally get. I mean, there's a couple million troops essentially stationed there in southern England, and what is it, about 1 million or so, I think, get off in the first month or two. But it looks like they're going quick. All right, the Devil's Brigade. What's this?
In World War II, the Canadians distinguished themselves not only as dependable infantrymen, but also as skilled commandos in a joint American-Canadian unit called the 1st Special Service Force. They're known as the Devil's Brigade.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm glad they have nicknames because there's so many boring, just this number regiment. Okay, the Devil's Brigade. I was about to say, this better have a better name. If the Americans and Canadians are going bro mode together, like, they gotta have a good name for it. What would be some other good names? Some good American-Canadian mixed names. Let me know down below.
Called the 1st Special Service Force that are known as the Devil's Brigade or the Black Devils. The Devil's Brigade was formed in June 1942 and had only accepted individuals into its ranks who were already well acquainted with survival and the outdoors.
They're already rough dudes.
As a result, former skiers, parachutists, hunters, lumberjacks, trappers, and game wardens made up the majority of its personnel. These hard and rugged men were transformed into killing machines via a brutal training regime that involved 100-mile speed marches and specialist training with all sorts of weapons, explosives, and vehicles. To strike fear into their enemies' hearts on the battlefield, they placed a calling card on the dead, emblazoned with the phrase, "The worst is yet to come."
Oh my gosh. Calling cards of death. I mean, I don't know who's meant to see those. I mean, they're already dead, but I guess anybody that comes around after or the reinforcements, it's like, yeah. Oh my God, you just got North America'd.
Card on the dead, emblazoned with the phrase, "The worst is yet to come," in German.
I want a calling card of my own.
The Black Devils were assigned the most.
I'll give it to students, and it'll just say, "You got learnt, Mr. Terry."
Dangerous assignments, with one of their most iconic missions taking place in December of 1943 at the mountain peak of Monte la Defensa, southeast of Rome. For about a month, multiple British, Canadian, and American assaults attempting to dislodge the Germans at the top had been wiped out one after the other. By the time the Devil's Brigade arrived on the scene, Monte la Defensa had been battered with over 200,000 shells, earning it the nickname the $1 Million Hill. At 1:30 a.m. on December 3rd, carrying 60-pound rucksacks as well as knives, guns, and bayonets, and with charcoal-blackened faces, 600 men of the 1st Special Service Force began climbing up the near-vertical cliff face as fog and swirling snow enveloped the mountain. A little before 6 a.m., they reached the summit and began quietly slitting the throats of sentries. Then, all of a sudden, a rock slide gave away their position and the enemy opened fire. The fighting was intense, and both sides suffered heavy losses.
They were going stealth mode.
The battle-hardened Germans were eventually expelled. In a mere 2 hours, the month-long...
Right, this is when the Germans are getting so pissed at Italy, because Italy can't do any of this defending for themselves. And yeah, you know, Hitler was getting extra pissed because he's got his hands full on this time. Of course, in the Eastern Front, and then now you've got the Southern Front to deal with. Italy was a bad ally. I don't know if that's something to think about going forward in the future. Do you avoid them? I don't know. Don't join them.
Germans were eventually expelled.
On them? I don't know.
In a mere 2 hours, the month-long standoff had been ended by a force that was 10 times smaller than the combined Allied force that had up until then failed to take Monte la Defensa. With a little help from the Americans, they had shown that once again, that to mess with a Canadian in wartime is to sign your own death warrant.
Yeah, the guard worst is yet to come. Oh, dude, that's so crazy. All right, final thoughts. All right, that was nuts. That was very enlightening in a certain way to hear about just the no-chill stories that the Canadians had in these wars. Now, one thing you might have heard about and I've known about is actually about the successful history, really, of the Canadian military, and that when you look at it kind of per capita as a smaller country, when you look at how much of an impact they actually had, and when it comes to POW or people killed in the war and like success that they had, when you actually are able to look at it kind of toe to toe with countries with bigger populations like the United States, Britain, France, etc., that the Canadians get right up there. And but then to add this added part of all the no chill stories makes it go even deeper there. All right, well, this was entertaining to say the least. What did you guys think about it? My Canadian friends there, what do you guys think? And if you guys, if the rest of you didn't know, what do you now think about Canada when it comes into military history? Let me know down below. We'll see you guys later. Bye.